Warahmatullahi, Wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thumma ma ba'd. I'd like to start first of all by expressing how honored myself and my team are to be here. And I pray that a lot of good comes out of this institution for Muslims and the world, actually, all world over. And I pray that all of you are able to play a significant role in doing that. What I want to do, inshallah, first and foremost is to break the ice. This is a formal setting, but I am personally allergic to formal settings. So what we're going to do is just set some ground rules myself, even though some ground rules were given about not using the cell phone or whatever. What I'm going to do is, if I ask you a rhetorical question, then I expect you to say the answer out loud. And if you don't say the answer out loud, I will ask the cameraman to make you famous. Okay, so, inshallah. So it won't be hard, inshallah. But I do want to highlight the purpose of my talk today. Whatever little time I have, I've broken it up into two parts. The first part of the conversation I want to have with you, yeah, you want me to hold that instead? Okay, cool. Okay. So the first conversation I want to have with you is some things about Ramadan that get overlooked. I'm sure all of you have heard your share of lectures about Ramadan before. And as the month approaches, we start hearing talk about that on the khutbah, or even online. You might go check out, the importance or benefits of Ramadan and things like that. But I'd like to try and highlight some of the things that I feel, at least, don't get enough attention, inshallah ta'ala, especially in light of the Quran. And so that's what I'll try and do first. I won't probably get through all of the lessons that I'd like to share with you about Ramadan, but I'll handpick a few of them that I think are most relevant, inshallah ta'ala, given the brief time. So I'll begin from somewhere that you might not expect. It's going to be a history lesson. And it's going to start with a man named Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now this man, from the revelation perspective, has two famous sons. Any thoughts? The older son, call it out. Ismail alayhi salam. And then the younger son, Ishaq alayhi salam. So we're going to focus on Ishaq alayhi salam first. So Ibrahim alayhi salam is the father, Ishaq is the son. And Ishaq has a son. Any idea who that might be? Yaqub, right. So we'll start at the top for those of you who are new to this. It's okay if you didn't know before. The grandfather is who? Ibrahim. And the son? Ishaq. There's two sons, but we're focusing on one of them, right? Ishaq. And then his son, Yaqub. Yaqub has another name. Yaqub has another name. Israel. Not Bani Israel, Israel. He's got kids, but he means kids, that's later. But his name is what? Israel. So we'll start at the top again, just so I make sure you guys got this. What's the top? Grandfather. Ibrahim, then Ishaq, then Yaqub, who's also known as Israel. He's got 12 sons, and one of them is a prophet. Oh, right, Yusuf, right? So we've got this lineage going. Now, of course, he's got 12 sons. Those sons have families. Those families get really, really big. And each of those families basically become a tribe by themselves. And eventually that entire family gets known as, that extension is known as the 12 tribes of Israel, Bani Israel. That's where that comes from, okay? So what I've tried to describe to you is a prophet, Ibrahim alayhi salam, whose son is Ishaq, a prophet, whose son is Yaqub alayhi salam, who's a prophet, whose son is Yusuf, who's a prophet. Now add to that the prophet himself, our prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, told us, about the Israelites, about the children of Israel. From there on, كُلَّمَا هَلَكَ نَبِيٌّ خَلَفَ نَبِيٌّ. Every time a prophet would die, another would take his place. So this family of Ibrahim, these children of Ibrahim, actually get prophets virtually every generation, continuously. And they keep getting them for centuries and centuries and centuries, until actually all the way through to the last messenger that was sent to them specifically, which is Isa, the son of Maryam. Isa is the last one that was sent particularly to them. Inni Rasulullahi Alaikum musaddiqan. I've been sent as a messenger to you particularly in order to confirm. So now they get these prophets. What was on the other side? Ibrahim alayhi salam and then Ismail alayhi salam. Okay. Now let's see how many prophets they get. The grandson would be not really known. Great-grandson? Anything? Keep going down generations, and what's happening here? The score is pretty high on this side, and the score is basically 0 on that side for a really long time. Now what was the last messenger sent on the other side, on the Ishaq side? Isa alayhi salam, right? That's the last one. And of course, the Quran will tell us that they got all this preference of these prophets over and over and over again. That helps you understand وَأَنِّي فَضَّلْتُكُمْ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ, the Quran statement that I gave you preference over all other nations of the world. No other nation receives prophets like this. No other nation in history receives messenger after messenger after messenger. And even when they received revelation, of course, the grand revelation that they received was at the hands of one messenger. His name is Musa alayhi salam. You guys know, the most mentioned prophet in the Quran, right? And when they received that Tawrat, the book that they received, the Quran actually makes the claim that they made changes to that book. They altered it, or they lost parts of it. And as they did, as big as a crime that is, Allah would send other prophets to revitalize the book again. So instead of scholars, you know what scholars do? If religious teachings are lost, then a scholar's job is to revive those teachings and teach a community again. But actually, in the case of the Israelites, it wasn't scholars that would revive the religion. Who would? Prophets would. That's why the Prophet says, "Ulama'u ummati ka'anbiya Bani Israel." The scholars of my ummah are like the prophets of Bani Israel. Like their job was to revive that community over and over and over again. Now, so they get this preference over and over again. Until again, I bring you to that last messenger to them again, Isa alayhi salam. Now they were pretty bad with their prophets. This is what the Quran claims, and this is what we learn about how they dealt with prophets. وَيَقْتُلُونَ النَّبِيِّينَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. It wasn't enough that they made fun of them or questioned them or criticized them. And I don't like to speak about a group of people without having interacted with them or talked to them. So a few of my friends, especially one of them is a rabbi, and we hang out quite a bit. We haven't been hanging out for a couple of months now, but because he's traveling. But we talk about prophets a lot and our different perspectives. And I can tell you with a lot of confidence now, because when you read about these things from Muslim sources, and me being from New York, I figured, I have a lot of access to the other side. So let me just find out. Let me just, and I actually didn't make as many friends in the Jewish community while I was in New York. It's actually ironically when I moved to Texas that I made friends with a scholarly rabbi. And I asked him about these prophets. I actually especially asked him about the grandfather. Who was that again? The grandfather? Ibrahim alayhi salam. And I'll tell you, from Ibrahim alayhi salam onwards, their perspective on what a prophet is completely different from us. It's completely different. From the religious perspective, they see it entirely differently. When I asked him about Ibrahim, I asked him, so what do you learn from Abraham? I know what we learned. I didn't share that with him. You know what we learned fundamentally? إِذْ قَالَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ أَسْلِمْ قَالَ أَسْلَمْتُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Whenever his master said to him, submit, he submitted. Unconditional submission is what you learn from Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's why, he even made dua that make us the ones who submit. رَبَّنَا وَجْعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ. So the idea of complete trusting submission before God, peaceful submission before God, that is what we learn from Ibrahim alayhi salam. And I was expecting to hear the same thing from the rabbi. So I said, what do you guys learn from Abraham? And he says, what we learn from Abraham is that you have the right to negotiate and argue with God. And first, maybe I heard it incorrectly. Would you say that again? Yeah, we learned that you can negotiate and argue with God. From Abraham? Yeah, of course. I said, please explain that one to me, because I did not see that one coming. And so he explains to me that and he gave me an analogy. He said when a child is young, then the child doesn't know any better. So when the father says, pick that up, the child picks it up. When the mother says, eat this, the child eats it. Unless they're my kids, they don't eat it. But normally kids, you tell them to do your homework, he'll do his homework. Put those clothes on, put those clothes on. That's what they're going to do. Go to sleep, he'll go to sleep. But as a child gets older, especially a young boy gets older, he gets more independent. And he starts thinking for himself. And he goes out in the real world, and he gains experiences. So when his father says, I want you to be a farmer, he says, no, father, I want to be a businessman. There's more benefit in being a businessman. We can make more money for the family. And the father listens to him and says, yeah, you're right. Go ahead, be a businessman. In other words, now this is a sign, when the son argues with the father, it's a sign that the son has matured so much that he could actually have his own opinions, and this is a proud day for the father. And as he's giving me this example, I'm thinking to myself, what does that have to do with Abraham? He goes, well, we're like children of God. Now, we don't say these terms. These are Jewish and Christian terms. We're like children of God. And now, as he matured, he learned to argue with God. I was like, I need you to give me an example. Where did you get this from? So he says, some of you might be familiar, Ibrahim alayhi salam, the angels came to his house a number of angels came to his house, and he didn't know them, and he invited them in, and he made food for them, barbecue, and he put it in front of them, and did they eat it? No, they didn't eat it, and he got really nervous. Now the thing is, you might wonder why he got nervous. I mean, if it was me, I'd be happy, there's more food for me left, but why is he getting nervous? He's getting nervous actually because back in the day, there used to have these groups called assassins. And if they came to kill you, they won't eat your food. Because that's a matter of honor. So when they don't eat his food, فَأَوْجَسَ مِنْهُمْ خِيفَةً, then he started getting, maybe this is not a good thing. So they said, no, we didn't come here for that. We came to give you congratulations that you're going to have a child. And his wife started laughing. Thinking, really? Me have a baby? But Ibrahim a.s. is really smart. He a.s. notices that Allah doesn't have to send a group of angels to tell me about one baby. So he asks, why are you really here? مَا خَطْبُكُمْ أَيُّهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ. They said, well, actually, on the way to our actual mission, we wanted to stop by and give you congratulations on the baby, but we came here to kill everyone in the nation of Lut. So we're here to wipe the nation out. But I'm really happy for you. Now, so now Ibrahim, and by the way, Lut is related to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Okay? Some historical accounts suggest he's the uncle. So he's worried about that nation. He's worried about that nation. And by the way, on a side note, you guys know the crime of the nation of Lut. And if it was an average Muslim today who heard that they're going to be destroyed, he would have been like, yes, finally. But Ibrahim alayhi salam hears that they're about to be destroyed, and what does he do? He starts pleading on their behalf. And he negotiates. Actually, even the Quran says, يُجَادِلُنَا فِي قَوْمِ Lut. He argued with us about the matter of Lut. And this is in the Old Testament too. The Torah has this too. So the rabbi says, look, he argued with God. See? We learn from Abraham that you should what? Argue with God. I was like, okay. So you're saying that this whole argument with God thing is a sign of his maturity. And he said, yes, of course. So I said, okay, let's go a little further. That means as he matures more, he should argue less or more? He should argue more. And according to you, this baby who is going to be born, later on is supposed to be slaughtered, yes? God is going to send Abraham dreams that are going to tell him to slaughter his own what? Son. So the people he doesn't know that are criminals and are going to be punished by God, he's arguing about. But when God tells him to slice up his own what? Son, does he argue? Not according to you, he went right for it. He didn't argue. I thought as you get older, you're supposed to argue what? More. And the rabbi's quiet for a little while. Then he says, well, I never said getting older means more maturity. So okay, this conversation's over. But the point I wanted to make, that was a side note, and you might be wondering, why am I talking about Ibrahim alayhi salam? We're here to talk about Ramadan. This guy is so confused. I'll show you eventually. You got to trust me on this. This all has to do with Ramadan. All of it. You'll see in a second. But now, for now, their perspective on prophets is entirely what? Entirely different. Starting with Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now, I'll tell you something from the Islamic side. Ismail alayhi salam, his son, the older son, he is commissioned to go to this valley and leave his family there, this baby Ismail there. He comes back later when فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ, when he's old enough to run around with his son. There's an age where you really get to enjoy your child. There's a certain age where as soon as they start crying, you hand them over to the wife. Right? So you can enjoy them for a little bit, and then they get fussy and like, oh, okay. But then there's an age where you can play with your son, you can run around with your son. You can enjoy the company of your son. You can take trips with your son. That's the age he reached with his son. Now he's actually getting to enjoy his son. And then Allah sends him the dreams. And he's supposed to make the ultimate sacrifice. And he's able to do that. He's able to actually submit himself, and both father and son are ready to, one is able to give up his life, ready to give up his life, and the other is ready to do the unthinkable. As a matter of fact, parental instinct, how many parents in the audience? Parents? Okay, mashallah, quite a few. Look, if you ever see a dream of your child being hurt, you'll be disturbed. Not getting killed, being hurt. You'll wake up crying. I have. The thought of a child being hurt is bothersome. We can't even say the sentences. As a matter of fact, most parents, when they're watching the news and they hear about a child dying or a child abduction or something, we change the channel. We can't bear it. It's too much to handle. This man sees graphic dreams of his own child being slaughtered. By who? By himself. And this is one of the most disturbing images you can imagine. I can't imagine that. I mean, put yourself in that position. Imagine just what he has to see. Forget what he has to do. What he has to see. This could lead someone to therapy for years. That could drive someone mad. And then not only does he have to see those dreams and forget about them, he continuously sees them. You know, seeing an image like that one can ruin you for life. But he sees it continually. And not only does he see it, he has to share it. But share it with who? You and I, maybe we share it with a therapist. Who do we share this with? Who does he share this with? The same son. And then the son says the most disturbing thing of all, If'al ma tu'mar. Do what you've been told. Ibrahim alayhi salam did not say, Allah is telling me to do this. He said, Inni ara fil manami. I just see in the dream that I'm slaughtering you. He didn't say, Ya'muruni Allah. He didn't say Allah is commanding me to kill you. He just said, I see it. But since Ismail is a prophet too, Ismail alayhi salam interprets it as, actually that is a command. Dad, you need to do what you're told. The most disturbing words. And now so they passed this test. Let me fast forward. They passed this test. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is so proud of both of them for passing this ultimate test of loving Allah and trusting Allah more than the greatest love of your life, your child. You know? Especially at the age where you're starting to be proud of him. You're getting old and he's running around. At that age, when they pass that test, Allah gives them an award. And the award is they get to build the most noble building in history. They get to raise the foundations of what? The Kaaba. That's not an easy thing to earn. Like the right to raise the foundations of the Kaaba is not an easy right to earn. This has to be earned after the ultimate sacrifice. And that's what they were both able to do. So now they've been honored with the award of building this house. Now as they've been honored to build this house, you know, if you get the award, then you're in a position to ask. You should be in a position to make some requests. After all, you make more dua than any other time when you're at the haram, yes? You're like, I came all the way here for Allah. I dressed like I'm about to be buried. And I'm standing in front of His house. This is the time for me to ask, isn't it? People fight with each other, even though they're not supposed to. Fight with each other, elbow each other in the face to try to touch the Kaaba so they can make some dua. Yes or no? Yes. You know? The man who's building it with his son, he's in a position to make dua, yes or no? I mean, every single person from that time until now who's ever prayed any prayer, they have a share in it. They get their reward. They built it. Every masjid that's ever built is a satellite of what? Of Al-Masjid al-Haram. It's a satellite location. So now, as they're building it, what do they ask? They ask a couple of things. They want to be Muslim before Allah. رَبَّنَا وَاجْعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ. Then they say, now here's the interesting part. We're getting closer to Ramadan now. وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ. Out of our offspring, at least one nation should be Muslim. At least one nation out of our offspring should be what? Muslim. Every nation, every generation was Muslim on the other side, yes or no? Every generation. Here he asks what? At least give me what? One. Then he asks for a prophet, because if you're going to be a Muslim nation, then you need a prophet, or you need prophets. He says, رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا, not رُسُولًا, رَسُولًا مِنْهُمْ. Appoint among this lineage, between Ibrahim and Ismail, this lineage, appoint among them, raise among them a single messenger from among them. So how many messengers did he ask for on this side? One. How many messengers came on the other side? Every generation, yeah? All the way until Isa alayhi salam. but he asks for one on this side. So the score is continuous on this side, and the score is going to be eventually what? One on the other side. Just one. But it seems that this one is going to be greater than all the others put together. That one dua is so powerful. What he's asking for is a messenger that compensates, and more than compensates, not just for the children of Ismail. By the way, all the prophets that came on the other side came as prophets for who? Bani Israel. You know, وَجَعَلْنَاهُ هُدًى لِبَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. We built the Torah and all of its, reformation. All of it was actually a confirmation for and guidance for the Israelites. But when this final messenger comes, when they're building the house, they're not building it for Ismail and his children. He's not building it only for Ismail and Ishaq. He actually says, and Allah even describes in the Quran, وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ, for people. It wasn't even restricted to two families. The house they were building was for all of humanity. That's why Allah describes the house as إِنَّ أَوَّلَ بَيْتٍ وُضِعَ لِلنَّاسِ, the first home built, put together for the service of humanity. So when he's going to ask for this one messenger in this lineage, he's going to have to be a messenger that is not limited to that lineage. He will be a messenger for who? All of humanity. That's why that one is more than anything else. That one is going to be more than anything else. Now I'm going to stop here for a second, and I'll show you how all of this is connected. The grandfather we talked about is who? Ibrahim alayhi salam is unique among all the other prophets. Among all the other prophets, the title of father goes to only two people in the Quran. Our father. Of course, our father in humanity is who? Adam alayhi salam. And our father in religion is actually Ibrahim alayhi salam. Every other prophet, we call them our messengers. We call them messengers and prophets, Anbiya and Rusul. But for Ibrahim alayhi salam, he's not just a messenger to us. Millata abikum, Ibrahim. The religion of your father, Ibrahim. One of the names of Islam in the Quran is the religion of your father. I want you to think about that. One of the names of Islam is what? The religion of your father. Who's the father referenced to? Ibrahim alayhi salam. So we are the religion of Ibrahim. We're the religion of our father, Ibrahim. How many pillars in Islam? I'm going to show you 4 out of 5. I'm going to skip zakat. I know this is IDB, you guys are like, why are you skipping zakat? That's an important one. But I'll show you 4 out of 5. First one, Shahada. The idea of La ilaha illallah is clearer in the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam than any other legacy. Born in a family, born in a village, born in a tribe of idol builders, idol worshippers. The only one who stands up for what? La ilaha illallah. The only one, and by the way, an ummah by himself. And then the one who is commissioned to build the house that will make sure that until the day of judgment, what is secure? La ilaha illallah. That house represents the worship of one God at the expense of everything else, isn't it? So our shahada is actually continuation of the legacy of who? Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam says, La uhibbul afilin. I don't love, the sun. He talked about the sun and the moon, and he said, I don't love things that settle. The most magnificent creation you can see around you is the sun. There's no bigger creation with your naked eye that you can see than the sun. And so he demonstrated to his people how the sun is not God, yes? And the moon is not God. But he said something interesting about the sun and the moon. He said, I don't love things that disappear or settle, that decline. Decline is a good word for afil. Now, I want you to think about this. Our prayers on a daily basis, don't they revolve around the decline of the sun? The rise and fall of the sun? The fact that the sun is a temporary entity for us. It rises, it has its glory, then it starts setting, and it's weakened. And as every major position shift, it's time for a different what? It's time for a different prayer, isn't it? As a matter of fact, our prayers are a manifestation of Ibrahim alayhi salam's statement, La uhibbul afilin. What's really interesting, according to one great scholar, Hamiduddin Farahi, is Allah designed it as such a legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, that when the sun is at its weakest position, when you can truly start seeing the weakness of the sun is Maghrib. And Isha is completely gone. And Fajr is just beginning to rise. So those three are when it's clearest that the sun is weak. And those three are when we pray the loudest. Our recitation is actually loud in those 3 times. And every other time it's what? Silent. It's actually it's a manifestation of, as a matter of fact, the legacy of Ibrahim a.s. And by the way, prayer goes back directly to Ibrahim a.s. for many reasons. This is one of them. Like, Rabbi ja'alni muqima as-salat. It's the prayer of Ibrahim. Make me the one who establishes the prayer, and out of my children. So every time we say, qad qamat as-salah, or when the Imam says, aqim as-salah, they're actually repeating the dua of who? Ibrahim a.s. So shahada goes back to him, prayer goes back to him. I'll go in strange order because we want to talk about Ramadan. We'll talk about Hajj third. Which one am I skipping again? I'm skipping Zakat. So 4 out of 5 at least we'll get to discuss. Hajj. I don't think Hajj has anything to do with Ibrahim a.s. Right? I mean, what could it possibly have to do? Hajj is... Oh, wait a second. Where do we do Hajj? The building he built? There is a little tiny space there called Maqam, what? Oh yeah, Ibrahim. Oh, I don't think Safa and Marwa have anything to do with Ibrahim. Oh, yeah, that too. Eesh. Okay, so how about Zamzam? That has nothing to do with it. Oh wait, that too. Okay, no, I got this. Slaughtering the animal has nothing to do with him. Oh, that too. The entire celebration of Hajj is actually what? A celebration of the legacy of Ibrahim a.s. The entire thing. The ultimate accomplishment in the life of a Muslim, the huge burden off his or her shoulders, is the ability to make Hajj. The ability to take the journey that one day, a long time ago, his or her father, Ibrahim a.s. took, isn't it? We're going to take the journey of Ibrahim a.s. It's incredible. You know, I was at a gathering of Christian and Jewish communities, and they talked about the religion of Abraham, like the Abrahamic faiths, that's what they call them, the Abrahamic faiths. And I started very offensively. I said, I don't think anybody has the right to call themselves part of the Abrahamic faiths with the Muslims. We have a convention every year that celebrates Abraham. What do you guys have? You have millions of people from all over the world that can't even speak to each other, but they love their father Abraham. And look at what they do every year. Millions of people. Dressed exactly the same, going through every single, even Jamarat goes back to him, you know. Every single ritual they perform is a celebration of the legacy of who? Abraham. You show me what you guys do. Show me how you are the religion of Abraham. I gave this talk, and that's the day I made friends with the rabbi, because he was in the first row and he was crying his face off. He's like, we need to spend time together. I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. If you know a good kosher restaurant, I'm in. You know, it's going to be hard in Texas, but we'll find something. But anyway, 3 so far. Shahada, prayer, obviously Hajj, yes? But the one I came to talk to you about was, how's he going to do that? What does Ramadan have to do with Ibrahim? He didn't fast. They didn't have iftar back then. What's he going to talk about? Well, listen. Both Ibrahim and Ismail are together and they pray. They ask for a single what? Messenger. But they don't just ask for a single messenger. وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. They ask for that messenger to do something. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ. He will read your revelations onto them. This messenger's job will be to what? Give you what? Revelation. Give these people revelation. What revelation did the Prophet come with? Okay, so he came with Quran. Quran came at what time? شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, yeah? So Ramadan is the month in which the Quran came down. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي, help me out here, لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. Yes? We sent it down in the night of power. The night of power is in which month? In the month of Ramadan. Ramadan was the month in which the dua of Ibrahim was answered. The dua of Ibrahim was a messenger who will recite the ayat. He became a messenger in the month of Ramadan. The ayat came to him that he could recite onto people when? In the month of Ramadan. The entire month of Ramadan, we are celebrating that the dua of Ibrahim was finally answered. Alayhi salam. That's what we're doing. What I started with was, we talk about Ramadan every year, but we don't much talk about certain things that I think are important. we need to remember what this is about. Was Ibrahim alayhi salam concerned with one group, or was he concerned with humanity? He was concerned with humanity, yes? Did he, even the most sinful of people, did he have hatred towards them? I gave you an example today. I gave you an example that even the most sinful of people, he didn't have hatred towards them. Which example did I give you? The nation of Lut. And we are the religion of our father, Ibrahim alayhi salam. Can you understand that there are people who recite the Quran and justify hatred through the Quran? Forgetting the fact that this Quran is the fulfillment of the dua of who? Ibrahim alayhi salam. Whose entire legacy was love and concern for all of humanity. So they can find that love of Allah like he found. Subhanallah. How far we've come. When you don't understand where you're coming from, you can't understand where you're going. This is the first and foremost thing I wanted to bring to your attention. That we are part of a universal religion. This religion appeals to all humanity. And we have to understand that this is why now, if you understand the ayat of Ramadan now from that perspective, then you'll see it completely differently. I will take maybe 10 more minutes on this subject, then I'll give you guys a 2-minute break where you can make friends and enemies, and then I'll start talking again, because I want your attention span to be fresh for the next part. But I will take these 10 minutes to tell you one more thing. I talked about 2 families. Starting where? Ismail and Ishaq. Which kept getting prophets? Ishaq's side. Until Isa. Then they made fun of prophets before. They even killed prophets before. But this was really bad. I mean, this one, they even went after him when he was a baby. At least leave a baby alone. They even went after his mom. This was beyond offensive. And so when they tried to kill him, not only did Allah rescue Isa alayhi salam, not only did he rescue Jesus, he also decided that no more for you. That's it. I give you prophet every generation, yes or no? But no more. 6 centuries went by, no prophets. Almost 600 years, no prophets. And their books actually told them that there is one final one coming. And they were waiting in anticipation. As a matter of fact, some Jewish tribes moved to Medina because their books told them that he's going to come to Medina, that he's going to migrate into the city. There were companions of the Prophet, radiallahu anhu ajma'in, who were actually from Jewish lineage. And when he moved to Medina, they showed him letters of their ancestors that they had written to the Prophet. We came here in wait of you, but we didn't see you, so hopefully our children will. He received those letters when he came to Medina. So the people were waiting for a Prophet to come to which city? Medina. Like he will migrate here and we'll be able to greet him. This was mentioned in their books. That's why, when Allah says, يَعْرِفُونَهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُم, they know him like they know their own kids. It was known. The problem was, when the Prophet finally came, according to them, the gift of messengership came to the wrong address. It was supposed to be on this side, and all of a sudden, that side. What is this? We can't accept that. As a matter of fact, an entire narrative was created to demonize the children of Ismail. In later Jewish literature and now evangelical Christian literature, the children of Ishmael are cursed. They are evil, and their religion is evil. And that's why the religion of Islam is evil. Because this is a cursed lineage. And they created this mythology. So they couldn't accept that the gift of prophethood that they had for so long could be taken away. Right? But it was taken away. Now, here's where things get really interesting. This was part of this last 10 minutes. The Prophet ﷺ, before Ramadan came, he actually used to fast. Before Ramadan. You know which days he used to fast? The same days as the Jews of Medina. Whatever they were given in their book, he used to fast on the same days. The Prophet ﷺ used to pray before the change of the Kaaba. He still used to pray. In what direction? Towards Jerusalem. To illustrate that the religion that has come is not a different religion. This is still the religion of Ibrahim. And even though Ismail and Ishaq are 2 different lineages, lineage does not determine truth. Truth is truth. Those were prophets too. Just because you hate the Arab side, the Arabs don't hate the Israeli side. We're actually one religion. It's one source. It came from God. There's no way we're going to deny it out of spite. So unless God tells us otherwise, we're going to pray in the same direction and fast on the same days, because that was all revelation too. Our Prophet's job, alayhi salatu wasalam, is to confirm what came before him. to live by what came before him. So we used to follow the same qibla, pray in the same direction, and fast on the same days. Now, all of a sudden Allah decides that they have been given enough chances, now they don't deserve that we should consider ourselves one giant family. You guys need to be separated from them, and you need to develop your own identity. The Muslims are now being told, you need to develop your own identity. You need to become your own nation. You now need to represent the pure legacy of Abraham without any corruption. So, here's step one. Because you're a new nation, you should get a new capital. And the capital should be the one built by the founding father. Founding father who? So the qibla changes. In Surah Al-Baqarah, first Allah talks about the Israelites and how they were disqualified. And then He says, Ibrahim a.s. built the Kaaba, and then He tells the Muslims, pray this way now. New capital for you. Now, a new nation has a new capital, but a new nation also has a new constitution. Yes? What's the constitution? Quran. And if a new constitution is celebrated, that day that the constitution is implemented or celebrated, that day should be their Independence Day. Yes? And that day is celebrated every year by nations, isn't it? When a constitution is inaugurated. Well, inna anzalnahu fi, forget Independence Day, we got Independence Month. That day was so powerful that it wasn't enough to celebrate one day. Allah made it 30 days of celebration. 30 days of celebration. It's an incredible thing. As a matter of fact, Ramadan is not just the celebration of the legacy of Ibrahim a.s. Ramadan is the celebration of the fact that we became a separate nation. A distinct nation before God. That's what we became. With our own constitution. That's what we're celebrating. Our unique identity as Muslims, as the restorers of the legacy of Ibrahim a.s. That's the beauty of this thing. SubhanAllah. You know, the day on which our direction in prayer changed, it was already known that the mission of the Prophet ﷺ is going to be cleaning up the Kaaba. It's going to have to happen. Because that's the house built by the Father. It needs to be cleaned. So when is the ayah? Today I have completed your religion. When does the ayah come? When when the idols are destroyed. When that legacy is restored. Everything comes back and that mission is completely fulfilled. SubhanAllah. This is, in a nutshell, what I wanted to give you about the historical perspective on the value and the power of Ramadan. One thing from the ayah of Ramadan, and I'm done. One thing, and that is هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ. What does هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ mean? Ramadan is the month in which the Qur'an came down. هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ means as guidance for humanity. Just a couple of things about that. Before the Qur'an, what was the previous constitution that was revealed? Before Qur'an, what was the constitution? Yeah, Injil was actually a furthering of the original Torah. Injil didn't have law. Torah had law. Now, the Torah was for all humanity? No. And that final messenger who had to come, he was supposed to be for the Arabs? Was he supposed to be for the family of Ibrahim? Was he supposed to be for all humanity? So the book that he was given had to be guidance for Huda Linnas. Guidance for all people. Allah specifically mentions this as guidance for all people, and He particularly highlights that in the month of Ramadan. I would argue because Allah softens people's hearts all over the world in the month of Ramadan, Muslim and non. We have an opportunity in the month of Ramadan to share something about the guidance for humanity that we don't have any other time in the year. It's not just that Muslims, their hearts are softened. Allah didn't just say Hudan lil Muslimin and Muttaqeen, that like He says in the beginning of Baqarah. He actually highlights here that the Quran that was given as a guidance for all of humanity. So if you have co-workers, friends, if you have business partners, if you have family that's non-Muslim, the time to maybe talk a little bit even about the Quran is what? It's Ramadan. Something will open up. You don't know. I'll tell you one crazy story about guidance for humanity. It's actually a true story. Pretty wild. One of my friends is a professor at a university in the United States, in North Carolina, and he loves talking about the Quran. He just loves it. And his coworker, who's Christian, every time he talks about the Quran, even if he says one word from the Quran, his coworker starts getting an allergic reaction. His eyes turn puffy, he starts sneezing, he starts coughing, like every time. One time they're traveling together in the month of Ramadan. And my friend has a theory. Maybe it's shayateen, I don't know. Somebody messes with him whenever I talk about the Quran. It's been going on for 10 years. But now we're traveling in Ramadan. And in Ramadan, what happens to the devils? The Hatid. They're chained. This is my chance. So he starts talking about the Quran. And there's no, he's waiting for the sneezing to begin. He's got the napkins ready too. There's no sneezing. And we have a nice conversation for a couple of hours. And they've been talking about Islam since. And he told me last time we spoke, he said he may be a couple of months away from just becoming a Muslim. He's starting to pray with us too and stuff. SubhanAllah. Hudal lin-nas. Don't underestimate it. Inshallah ta'ala. I pray that this is a wonderful Ramadan for all of you. And I pray, I made you repeat silly things after me, because I hope that inshallah when you go back home, you can share some of this stuff with your family. You know, because this is what we have to do. We have to restore our appreciation of our father Ibrahim alayhi salam and how everything is tied together in this beautiful religion. So I'm going to give you guys a 2-minute break, and then I'll talk to you about some really crazy stuff, inshallah. So enjoy your 2 minutes. If you're still talking after 2 minutes, I don't care, I'll keep talking. There's not going to be a formal introduction, please settle down, calm down, listen, none of that. 2 minutes, 120 seconds.